I found out my mother died through a stranger's text. That's how it starts, no poetic framing, no gentle lead-up. Just a buzz on my phone, a name I didn't recognize, and a message that read, "I'm so sorry for your loss. She loved you more than you'll ever know." I remember staring at the screen in my office cubicle, the fluorescent lights suddenly too bright, the air too still. It wasn't a prank, but it felt unreal. My heart didn't break so much as it disconnected, like it had yanked the emergency cord and checked out, leaving me sitting there numb and breathless. The thing is, I hadn't spoken to my mom in 3 years. Our last words were shouted over a slammed door, her voice thick with disappointment when I told her I was dating a woman. "This is not who we raised you to be," she said. I screamed back, "You didn't raise me at all." The shock of her death hit like a wave I didn't see coming, but the real tremor came an hour later. I was going through her contact list, trying to piece together who that mystery texter was when I found a message from her sent to me 2 weeks ago, unread, unopened. My stomach turned cold. I'd changed numbers months earlier and forgot to tell her. The message, sent to my old number, was short, just 6 words. "I'm sorry, can we talk?" That was it. 6 words that might have changed everything. That was the moment something shifted inside me, something deep and painful and impossible to ignore. Grief collided with guilt, and the result was unbearable. I couldn't go back and fix it, but I could find out who sent the first message. And I did. Her name was Aria. She was the hospice nurse who sat beside my mom in her final days. The woman who read my mom's letters out loud to an empty chair meant for me. My mom never stopped writing. Every letter began with "my darling girl" and ended with "please come home." Arya told me this in the softest voice I've ever heard, her eyes watching mine like she was studying something broken. She handed me a stack of those letters tied in a ribbon that smelled faintly of lavender and regret. I took them, my hands trembling, feeling like I was holding proof of a version of my mother I never got to meet. That night I read every letter until the sky turned lavender too, and I felt something bloom in the dark. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close, something like breath returning. But the twist, in the final letter, the last one dated 3 days before she died, my mother didn't just apologize. She said, "I hope you meet Arya. I hope she sees you like I finally did. And I hope you let her love you." I spent the next few days in a daze, caught between a grief I never expected to feel and a kind of unsettled curiosity about this woman named Arya. She felt like a shadow hanging over everything, a name I had never heard before, but somehow had always known. I couldn't shake the feeling that my mother had been holding on to something deep, something she couldn't say to me while she was alive. When I finally worked up the courage to reach out to Arya, I didn't expect her to pick up. I thought maybe it would be an awkward voicemail or nothing at all, but when she answered, her voice was warm, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. "Hello," she said, soft but clear, as though she was waiting for something, unsure of whether I was the person she had hoped for. It took me a moment to speak. I got your number from my mom's things. I need to know what happened. Please, what did she mean? Why did she write those letters?" There was a long pause on the other end, and then Arya spoke again, her voice trembling now. "She loved you, more than I think you realize. I wish you could have seen her before she was gone. She changed in the last few months. She told me about you, about the two of you, how she was sorry, how she never wanted to lose you, but she didn't know how to say it, not really. That was all I needed to hear to understand. My mother had never stopped loving me. In some twisted way, I had been right about one thing all those years ago. I did need her to see me as I was, not what she wanted me to be. But I wasn't prepared for what came next, the unexpected words that came tumbling from Arya's lips. "I'm not just the nurse who took care of her," she said, her voice growing steadier. "I'm the woman she asked to take care of you too." I didn't know how to process that. My mother, with all her stubbornness, had somehow seen something in me before I even did. A part of me wanted to hang up, to escape the rawness of it all. But then Arya said something else that left me frozen in place. "She wanted me to meet you. She told me you'd be ready someday. She said I'd be the one to show you how to let yourself love again. Are you ready?" I didn't answer her question, but it burned in the back of my mind like a spark in dry grass. That night, for the first time in years, I let myself cry, truly cry. I cried for the girl I had been, for the woman my mother never truly understood, for the mother who had tried in her own way to make amends, and for Arya, a woman I barely knew yet felt connected to in a way I couldn't explain. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about Arya, about the way she spoke, about the way my mother had trusted her, about how the idea of her seemed to occupy every corner of my mind without me ever inviting it in. I couldn't stop wondering what it would be like to meet her, to see her face, hear her laugh, to know if there was any truth to what she'd said. And yet I couldn't bring myself to reach out to her again. My emotions were a tangled mess, too complex and fragile to untangle by myself. It was one thing to grieve my mother, but quite another to entertain the idea of opening my heart to someone new, especially someone who had been so close to her in ways I couldn't even begin to understand. I was working late one evening when my phone buzzed again. This time the text came from a number I didn't recognize, but the message felt all too familiar. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overwhelm you, but I need to know if you're ready to meet. I know this is difficult, but you deserve to know the truth. Your mom asked me to tell you everything. It's not just the letters, it's everything." My breath caught in my throat. My hands shook as I read the message again, my heart racing with a mixture of dread and curiosity. This wasn't just about my mother anymore. It was about me, about what she had wanted for me, about what I wanted for myself. And then, as if on cue, another message followed. "I don't want to push you, but I think you should come here. You'll understand everything when you do. You need to come to my apartment. I'll be waiting for you." I don't know why I agreed. I don't know what possessed me to pack a bag that night to drive through the streets of the city, my mind spinning in a haze of confusion. Maybe it was a need to connect the dots. Maybe it was a way to escape the weight of my grief, but something in me said I had to go. I had to see her. I had to understand what it was my mother had meant, so I did. When I arrived, the door to Arya's apartment was ajar, a soft light spilling out from the inside. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorframe. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to flee. But then I heard her voice, gentle but insistent. "Come in, please. I've been waiting for you." Stepping over the threshold, I was met by the soft scent of lavender again, familiar, calming. Arya stood there, looking at me with a mixture of hope and caution. But it wasn't just her presence that struck me. It was the photograph on the wall behind her, a photo of my mother, yes, but there was something different about it. My mother was smiling, really smiling, her arm wrapped around someone. That someone was Arya. It was a picture of the two of them, arms intertwined, holding each other in a way I'd never seen. The realization hit me like a freight train. My mother hadn't just asked Arya to take care of me, she had asked her to love me, and she had. The room seemed to close in on me. My breath felt shallow, like the air was suddenly too thick to inhale. I stared at the photograph, the image of my mother and Arya entwined, a bond I had never known existed. I wanted to run, to leave, to forget this moment and the suffocating rush of emotions that followed, but I couldn't. My feet were glued to the floor as though something beyond me had already made the decision to stay, to face whatever this was, whatever it meant. I could feel Arya watching me, waiting for some reaction, but all I could do was stare at that picture. Then she spoke again, her voice almost a whisper. "She never told you, did she, about us? About how much we cared for each other? It wasn't just care, though, it was love. We loved each other in ways I couldn't have imagined, in ways she never allowed herself to admit, not until the end." I turned to her, finally meeting her gaze. Her eyes were soft, filled with a quiet sadness, as though she knew this moment would break me, yet she'd still waited for me to come to it. It felt like I was standing on the edge of something vast, something terrifying and unknown, and yet I was desperate to fall into it. My heart raced, the thoughts tumbling in my mind like a storm, each one trying to drown the other. "I don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. She loved you. How could she love you when she couldn't even love me for who I was?" Arya took a step closer, her expression tender but firm. "She did love you more than you know, but she couldn't love you fully, not until she understood herself. She spent her life trying to mold you into a version of what she thought you should be, because she never understood that you were perfect exactly as you were. When she found me, when she saw the love I had for her, unapologetic and open, she realized something. She realized that she could love you the same way. But by the time she understood that, she was too sick to show you, and she didn't know how to tell you, not without the fear that it would be too late." The words hit me like a brick wall. I had spent my whole life feeling rejected, abandoned, trying to win the approval of a mother who couldn't accept me for who I truly was. But Arya was right. In the last moments of my mother's life, she had found the courage to see the love I had been craving, even if it was too late for her to give it to me. There was something deeply tragic about that realization, but also something incredibly powerful. My mother had loved me. She had just never known how to express it until it was almost too late. The silence between Arya and me stretched long, each of us wrestling with what had just been laid bare. And in that silence, I felt the weight of years of anger and sorrow lift, if only just a little. But before I could say anything, Arya looked at me, her voice steady. "She wanted you to know that she loved you, and she wanted you to know that it's okay to love again, even after all of this, especially after all of this. She didn't want you to live the rest of your life waiting for her approval, for her permission. She wanted you to live for yourself, and then she wanted me to help you see that you are deserving of love, my love, your love, anyone's love." I stood there in that room, the weight of it all pressing down on me, feeling every bit of the truth settle into my bones. I could almost feel my mother's presence around me, the lingering echoes of a love that could never be fully expressed in this world. And for the first time, I could almost hear her say, it's okay to love. The silence stretched between us like a thin thread, delicate but unbreakable, holding both of us in a moment where time seemed to slow. I don't know how long we stood there, me trying to absorb everything Arya had just shared, the jagged pieces of my mother's love and the new, unfamiliar weight of my own grief. The walls seemed to close in a little tighter, the air thick with everything I hadn't known about my mother, about myself, and about Arya. There was a part of me that wanted to bolt, to run away from it all because it was too much, too raw. But another part of me, the part that had been starved for connection, for acceptance, whispered that maybe this was the beginning of something I had spent my whole life avoiding. Maybe it was time to stop running. Arya's eyes softened as she stepped forward, her hand reaching out slowly like she was offering me something fragile, something precious. I didn't move at first, the fear of vulnerability gnawing at me, but then something in me gave way, something I couldn't name, something that had been waiting for this moment. I reached out, taking her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch flood through me. It was tender, unhurried, and in that simple gesture, I felt the weight of all the unspoken words my mother had left behind. I don't know how to do this, I whispered, the rawness of everything spilling out of me in that single admission. I don't know how to trust, how to love, not after everything. Arya squeezed my hand gently, her voice steady yet full of compassion. It's okay, you don't have to know right away. You just have to start. Start with yourself. Start with the fact that you're here, that you're willing to try. That's all she wanted for you, all I want for you. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not just by Arya, but by myself. The years of pretending, of wearing a mask that hid who I truly was, felt like they were crumbling away. My mother's absence was still a wound that would never fully heal, but her final wish, her final hope for me was no longer something to fear. I didn't have to chase her approval anymore. I didn't have to prove myself. I could simply be. I could love without shame, without the need for validation. As I stood there with Arya in a room that had become a sanctuary of sorts, I realized that this moment wasn't the end of something painful, but the beginning of something new. I wasn't just healing from the loss of my mother. I was learning to open myself to the possibility of love again, real love, not the kind I'd tried to force into the shape of someone else's expectations, but the kind that was messy, imperfect, and beautiful. And in that messy beauty, I saw the truth of it all, my mother's love, Arya's love, and the love that had been waiting for me all along, if only I had let myself see it. The mistext that had brought me here, the moment that had seemed like a random twist of fate, suddenly felt like the most significant moment of my life. A single mistext that had opened the door to everything I had been too afraid to confront. And in that quiet, tender space between us, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I had finally found the courage to let someone love me in the way I'd always deserved.